Howdy underlings, let's say you just got a retro handheld doohickey emulator mathingy. You open it up, turn it on, maybe play some games or start setting up your handheld with more games. You're watching videos while you do this, as you often do, about your particular handheld. You hear people mention CFW or custom firmware, and that you might want to try one. You might have some questions like, what is custom firmware? Basically, it's the operating system that your handheld runs on. Like your phone or computer, it needs one of these systems in order to function. The one your device came with is called a stock OS, or stock operating system. It used to be that specifically the H700 handhelds by Anbernic had a horrible stock experience. Fast forward a few years and they've improved quite a bit. So you have all these videos from back a year or more telling you about how you should change firmwares. The majority of you likely don't need to change your firmware at all, but I'm going to show you why you might want to consider changing it and the benefits to doing so. Keep in mind that this is mostly about the H700 device line from Anbernic's XX series. Other devices might use different CFWs, but the general idea is the same. But I'm using the H700 line to talk about this stuff because that is the one that most people have. It's the one you probably have. Why would you change your firmware? In my case, I would have never tried a custom firmware if it wasn't for my RG Nano coming with a stock OS that bugged out. It wouldn't turn on at all. So I installed the CFW from someone in the community and it fixed it. Now I have an occasional flicker on the screen. Maybe it's just a bad device. Either way, the Nano was too small to be playable, so I'm just not using it anymore, so it doesn't really matter. A while later, my wife got a retro handheld in order to play some GBA. She got the 28XX, which I call the Cheetah because it's orange and the experience is fast, and because Anbernic's name scheme sucks. It came with the stock OS and it was having some issues. There was a bug specifically for Golden Sun where trying to catch a certain water gin crashed the game, so we put Moo OS on it. Moo, or Mustard OS, is a lighter, more bare-bones operating system. I don't personally like the look of Moo OS, so when she upgraded and gave me her Cheetah, I installed Nuli. Nuli is based on Batocera, a PC front-end for retro gaming. Front-ends basically are like Steam or a console homepage, but for your ROMs. Nuli is flashy and cool looking, but the more I played with it, the more I see why people like Moo OS. It's much faster, lower boot time, and games start faster. Even with 1,000+ games, it still starts faster than Nuli, which had less than a dozen on it. But the second I put my full ROM library on Nuli, Nuli wouldn't start all the way. It just wouldn't start. So I went back to Mustard. There are faster CFWs than that, but I already had the original card with Mustard on it, so no point in, doing something else. Since this is a smaller, ultra-portable handheld, I think it's better for it to have a faster CFW. Now, I recently got the RG Cube XX, or the hamster, because it's my favorite right now, and it looks like a hamster with a big forehead, just like me. The stock OS experience is good enough. With a screen of this size, I want something more flashy, but at the same time, I think stock is too slow. I'll get into the numbers soon. But it being slow would be alright if it looked better. This isn't a device I consider super portable because of its booty. It has a big booty, and the analog sticks aren't flush with the face, so I wouldn't be able to really pocket this. So it's fine for it to be slow because once it's on, I'll just use sleep mode and I'll turn that on and it'll turn on immediately and that'll be fast enough. Maybe I'll use Nully, maybe I'll use something faster. Depends. Since the hamster is also on stock OS, I can't use Portmaster and I can't get Moonlight to work right. I don't think that has anything to do with stock OS, I just think I'm having an issue with Moonlight on it. It also has 2 SD cards, so I can use the first one to change firmware without an issue. My games and saves are on the second card, and the firmware is on the first one. Portmaster lets me run PC games from my handheld, and they're actually on the handheld, so they'll run perfect if the hardware can handle it. So if you want to play Balatro and run it directly from your device, you can do that. But you can also stream it from Moonlight, and Moonlight is just streaming. You stream games from your PC, but because this device has a 1:1 ratio, you can imagine 16:9 games are pretty tiny on it. Not all games work on the hamster, but Moonlight can basically pick up the slack. Either way, with stock, I currently don't have a PC option at all. Lastly, you might want to change CFWs if you got a brand new device in general. The SD card that comes with your device is often a cheapo. These can fail and stop working. So you'll either want to do what I did and put all your games and saves on an SD card, or get a new SD card from a more reputable brand. I've been using On cards are perfectly fine. They're budget, but they're not, brandless. Then I installed a new CFW on it. The stock OS might be out of date if you bought it from another company, like Amazon or something. So you might also have an outdated and poopy CFW. As you can see, there's a lot of reasons as to why you might want a different OS. It mostly comes down to fixing something, aesthetics, speed, and features. If your device works fine and you're fine with its boot speed and you don't care about the themes, then you don't need a new CFW. Why wouldn't I want a new CFW? If your current one works and it is up to date, then you're fine. You might also not want to do a CFW if you're someone who isn't particularly tech savvy. If you're someone who's not good with computers, you probably shouldn't do this because you'll need either a PC or a Mac, an SD card reader, dongle thing, and know how to use a PC, or you're good at following tutorials. To put a new CFW on a card, you'll have to flash it. You can't just simply drag and drop the CFW to the card. That's because the SD card needs to be formatted, then partitioned, then have the firmware on it and build that firmware. Then you need to put it into the handheld to finish the build process. I just threw a lot of words at you, so partitioning is basically making sections. The CFW needs its own sections for the OS itself, and then a separate partition or section for you to store your games and save data. Basically a system folder and a public folder. You can't do that with just drag and drop. It's much more involved than that. It's not something we can do on our own. While doing this, if you have an external hard drive, it's actually possible to format or completely wipe your hard drive. So I don't recommend messing with this stuff without knowing what you're doing and understanding the risks involved. Once something is wiped, you don't get it back. I recommend you watch a specific tutorial for the specific firmware all the way through, at least once, before trying to follow along. Which CFW should I use? This is going to depend on your personal needs, but probably whichever one will click the subscribe button for you. Wait, I don't think any CFW does that. Maybe they should add that feature. I think you're just going to have to click it for yourself for now. And if you decide that you don't want to watch these videos later, you can always just click it again and turn it off. Anyway, there isn't a best CFW, only a best for what you need. For example, if you want speed, then you should look at boot times. In the chart on screen, you can see different boot times for the various operating systems, all running on the RG35XX or the 35XX. The entire XX line uses the same chipset, so these times should be consistent across all H700 devices, but as you can see, stock is 21.1 seconds long. I counted Mississippi's and got 20 seconds on the Hamster. Bhattacharya has a much longer time because it's a pretty heavy CFW. Bhattacharya was intended for PCs, not for handhelds. Nully is 5 seconds faster, and this makes sense because it's based on Bhattacharya, but like a handheld version of it. The rest of these you can see, they're much faster. You might notice that MINUI takes 15 seconds. That's a little weird because it's the most minimalist out of what's available, but that's because it has a lot going on in the background. MuOS is fast and pretty minimalist as well, and my test was 10 seconds, but I'm running on Banana, which is a prior version. The fastest one is Garlic, which is a surprise because it can look pretty fancy, but I check it, and yes, it's 9 seconds to boot. So if you want a device that boots the absolute fastest, then you're going to want Garlic. But all devices have a sleep function, which means you only need to turn it on once, then you can let it sleep the rest of the day and pick up and play later. Speed might not matter to you at all in the context of using a sleep function. The next thing that would matter to you is the appearance, and that's very subjective. Personally, I like how Nully looks and all the themes on it as well, but they can also be a little cheesy looking. Some people prefer a minimalist UI, so something like MuOS is minimalist and very techy looking, and just so happens to be fast as a bonus. Stock looks bad, regardless of the theme or the buttons. I'm glad that they improved it in other ways, but it's still ugly and cheap looking. Garlic is beautiful and fast. Min looks like File Explorer. Can't get much more minimalist than File Explorer. If you care about minimalism, most of these CFW have some sort of minimalist option, so I wouldn't dedicate yourself to just MINUI, but not all of them have a super beautiful option, and for that I recommend Nully. But there are also features to consider. I won't go over all of these because there's a lot of CFWs out there. If there is a specific feature you find missing in stock, you might find it in one of the CFWs I mentioned. For the most part though, you'll find that most CFW have similar feature availability, but if you want something like a kid-friendly mode, you might want Mu or Garlic. Kid-friendly mode or kiosk mode is just a setting that makes it so that you can't go into the settings without a parental code. Some CFW might also not support certain consoles, and they might have different folder structures. Like Mu and Nully use different file structures for things like thumbnails and preview videos. Choosing one of these to use is like American Politics or the Cola Wars. It's a two-party system. You have Nully fans and you have MuOS fans. Then you have weirdos that like Stock or Garlic. If you want speed, use Mu or Garlic. If you want fancy, use Nully. But if you want something specific, I suggest making a list of what you consider integral to your core experience and then seeing which one has the features you want. Like, you might not have considered this, but these can be used as MP3 players, and in that case, Nully doesn't have an MP3 player function, but you can add your own music to play in the background of the home menu. So if you want a music player in addition to Game Boy, then MuOS or Stock is the way to go. But Nully makes the device rumble when it shuts off, so who's the real winner here? How do I install a CFW? This is a technical subject, and because of that I suggest you watch one of Russ's videos on his channel Retro Game Course. He has multiple videos installing multiple different CFWs. They're very detailed and easy to follow, but the basic idea is that for Nully, for example, you'll need the SD card, an adapter to read it on your PC, and the app Rufus. Then you'll need to download the CFW from Nully. Once you've downloaded it, you'll pop in your SD card into your PC, open Rufus, select the memory unit you're flashing, then select which file it is that you're flashing, then click start, and wait. Once done, you'll pop it into your system and you'll be ready to go after it builds the whole thing for you. After that, you can install games, or if you have a second SD card like me, then your games are already ready to go. Don't use this video as a tutorial. That's why I didn't show you anything from the process. Go watch one of Russ's videos instead. Which one do you recommend? My recommendation is going to be dependent on which handheld you have and what you want the system to be as its central focus. You have 4 ways of playing these handhelds. You have pocketable, portable, house only, and console mode. A pocketable handheld is something that can easily fit in your pocket. This is a device that you'll want to have ready to play in an instant. A really Game Boy-like experience. You've got 10 minutes until the bus arrives, but that's just enough time to farm a bit in Dragon Quest. These are devices like the RG28XX Cheetah, Miyu A30, Miyu Mini, the micro handheld line basically. For these you want the lightest and fastest possible boot time, and that's going to be Garlic or Moo. Moo is much more popular though, so you should probably just use that. It'll be easier to get help if you need it. But these OS have incredibly fast 10-second boot times, and they launch games quickly. They're made for pick up and play, and if it only takes 10 seconds to boot, you'll likely fully shut off your system when you're done. So this will save battery compared to leaving it on all day like the next category. A portable handheld is a device that can't fit in your pocket easily, but you can easily toss it into a bag. This is something that you'll play frequently, but it's not something that you'll only pull out for very small time spans, maybe on your work break. These are devices like the RG Cube XX Hamster, RG40XX TrimUI Smart Pro. The games these are playing are also going to be bigger most likely, and you might be playing something that uses save points, so you'd want to be able to sleep this device. You can sleep all of these devices, but you're going to want to leave this one on sleep all day. In that case, having a long boot time isn't a problem, so if you prefer the nicer appearance of Nully, then it's fine if it takes a little longer for it to start. I think I'd still prefer MuOS in this instance. Nully can feel painfully slow. A house-only device is something that's very big or expensive, like the kind of thing that you want to bring with you because you're worried you get robbed. It might be very heavy or very wide. In the majority of situations, you'll never need a CFW, as any device in this category is going to be using Android, Windows, or SteamOS. In the situation that someone does release a monolith-sized H700 Linux handheld, I'd say use Nully. If you're at home, waiting 30 seconds to play something probably won't kill you. You can use that time to get comfy or pick something on TV to watch. But yeah, I don't think anyone is ever going to be in this specific situation. If you do have a house-only device, in the current day and time that I'm talking about this, you're using Android or Windows. So I recommend RetroBat for Windows and Daigisho for Android, and those are called front ends. It can take a little while to set these up, but when you do set them up, they do look really nice, like a home console or like a gaming kiosk. Console mode is devices that are handhelds but have an HDMI out. So the entire XX line can be consoleized, but the Cheetah doesn't have Bluetooth, so you can't use a controller with it. But my other H700 devices can consoleize easily. So say I'm using my Hamster and I consoleize it, hook up my 8-bit Do controller, and I'm wanting to play some games. For a better visual experience, I'd say use Nully. MuOS's newer version has better support for consoleizing, but Nully just looks better. To me, consoleizing is mostly a bonus feature for me. I don't ever use it as a console because I want to watch TV while I play, so I'd say whatever you have installed already is fine. I don't think anyone is using their handheld primarily as a console, so don't install a special OS specifically for using the TV unless you've got a dual card setup. If you want something like a console instead of a handheld, I suggest getting a mini PC and putting Batocera on it or RetroBat. Personally, I tried Nully on the Cheetah and I didn't like it. It's nice and pretty like Batocera is, but it's way too slow for a handheld of that size. On my Hamster, I use stock, but I'm thinking of switching to Nully. I have 2 cards in it, so I'll probably be looking around a little bit. I don't want to switch the Hamster to Moo because it uses a different file structure and I don't feel like messing with my games card. I mean, it wouldn't be an immense pain. I mostly just have to change the name of the image folders. But I'm not using my Hamster to play MP3s, so just really focusing on a strong and good looking gaming experience is my main thing here, so in that case I would use Nully. But that's all I have for this one. Hopefully this answered any questions you might have about CFWs. If you do have any more questions, ask them below, and I'll respond, and if there's enough of them, I'll make another video answering them. I'll see y'all later. Bye!